Welcome to Where Her Heart Speaks, a show designed to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also to help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine begins now.
Hi there, it's Coach Catherine. Have you ordered your copy of my mother-daughter journal yet? A couple of years ago, my daughter and I teamed up and we created the very thing that I will say saved our relationship at a time when things were really hard between us. What we began to understand is that we were not capable of communicating audibly to one another, because often what would happen is I would take a really hard stand and she would shut down. So we came up with the idea of writing back and forth. And as a result of this writing, our relationship is today phenomenal. So much that we talk on the phone every single day to each other. And I understand that that was not just our story, and many mothers and daughters have these challenges. So she and I came together. We want that very thing for you, a phenomenal relationship. So if you've struggled to voice your true feelings, or you would love to just capture handwritten notes from you, your mom, or your daughter, I want to encourage you to order a copy of the Sensational Living 52-week Mother-Daughter Journal by going to www.catherinejames.com/shop. Welcome and welcome back. I am Catherine James, international speaker, best-selling author, trauma-informed coach, and your host of Where Her Heart Speaks. If you have not already shared this link to invite a friend, I want to encourage you, go ahead and invite a friend. We this week are keeping in line with the topic of Mother's Day and experiences that mothers may have as we are still sitting in this time and space of Mother's Day. So go ahead and share the link. This topic is, I think, one that's very much needed, because for women of my age, which is over 50, and for some that are under 50, what I am finding is happened is that we find ourselves in that sandwich where we may be taking care of kids, but we come to a place, or not, maybe our children are already adults, but we come to a place where the people who once took care of us become our responsibilities, and then we have to now take care of them. So I have a very dear person here with me today, and I feel like I say this, but I think I'm blessed. Like, the people that get to sit with me are just beautiful souls. So I have a very dear person here today that is going to talk about some of her experiences in having the table turn, where the person who once took care of her, she now has to take care of that person or that woman. So this is the debt demolisher, Sophia Melanie. And I just want to say welcome, Sophia. Welcome.
Hello, Coach Catherine. Thank you so much for inviting me into the space, and I am honored to be with you on this day. The pleasure is certainly an honor and a privilege, so I just want to say thank you. Excited to be here.
Welcome. I thank you, and I'm so super excited to be in this space with you. I'm always excited to be in spaces with you, but we've talked about other things. This is more of a personal testimony that you are sharing with the world, and I thank you, because I know that this will help. So I am going to start this conversation by inviting you to just tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about yourself a little bit professionally, and then the personal side of things, and we'll just dive into. And before you do that, I'm sorry. No, I won't divert. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we will dive into this conversation.
Absolutely. So I am Sophia Melanie, better known as the Debt Demolisher. I am someone who works in the accounting profession. I've been in the accounting field for a very long time, and I began my passion into the financial literacy space as a result of wanting to just build a better relationship with my own resources and get rid of all of the debt that I was in as a result of either insecurities that I had within myself and also the responsibilities that I had as a caregiver. So outside of my professional career as an accounting director, I also go into the space of educating folks in a financial setting. So I love to speak on things as it relates to financial literacy, credit education, debt elimination, the importance of building your reserve. And I have a YouTube channel and other platforms that I do to kind of spread that information and to spread that encouragement to let folks know that their financial prosperity awaits them. And prior to me starting my debt elimination journey, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, was, of course, me being a caregiver to my mom at a very early age. And so it started out, of course, emotionally being a caregiver to her. And then, of course, turning into it being a financial responsibility as soon as I graduated from undergraduate school. And just having that responsibility to take care of her and be there for our family in order for us to be able to, I guess, be sustained and just look out for one another. I feel like I've always had that level of responsibility. So between working professionally and personally, I'm a caregiver, I'm a child of God, I am a daughter, I am a friend, I am a sister, and I am someone who is passionate about being intentional about what my soul is placed on this earth to do.
Mm, yummy. Ooh, way to end that one. So, for those of you that are listening, she dropped a few nuggets while we're talking about being a caregiver of the person who once cared for you in particular. She talked about being in the financial literacy space. So, I am just going to do a little plug, and I will ask her to share her information with us at the end. But if you have a desire to eliminate debt or build your financial reserve, then this is someone that you will definitely want to connect with, or just change your relationship with money. She did not tell us how much debt she was in and how much debt she was able to eliminate. And I'm just going to ask you to drop that, because that's some yeah, that's a mind-boggling number. So
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So when I started my debt elimination journey, I was at over $365,000 of debt. And now at this point, of course, debt accumulates, interest, you have new debt and so forth. But to this point, I've paid off over $500,000 in debt. So a little over 500,000.
Mhm. And how long was that? Because we hear stuff like this, and you'd be like, "Oh, it was 20 years," and people are like, "What? That's not exciting."
So 7 years. So within
7 years,
years.
$500,000 in 7 years. But what I know is that there was a large part of that was done in like 18 months. So I'm going to say,
Yes.
I want us to be modest, right? So we might have you come back and have that conversation, like how did all of that transpire? But while you were doing this, and what you said is, when as soon as I graduated from my undergrad, I became the basically person who was handling everything financial. Before that, though, you said I had to be the emotional support at an early age. And so when you say early age, how early are we talking? And I'm going to double up this question. What did that financial support look like, and why were you being the emotional support, and why were you being the person that was basically providing all of this emotional support in the household?
Okay. So I can tell you that in terms of how long it has happened, I will honestly say from as early as I can remember. So I remember at the age of 5, there was an incident that happened with my mom because my mom suffered from a really severe mental impairment. And at this moment, she was experiencing what do you call it? They call it she was having a manic episode.
Mhm.
And I was very young. I was 5 years old. And my mom was driving around with my brother and myself for probably days at a time. And I remember at one point we were like at a nearby gas station that was by my grandmother's house when my mom was trying to essentially put more gas in the car. And my brother recognized that we were near my grandmother's house at this point. And so when my mom got out to get the gas, he was like, I'm going to grandma's house, I'm running. Like, and he was trying to get me to go with him so that way we can get ourselves to safety. And being the obedient child that I was, and my mom telling me, stay in the car, don't move, that kind of thing. And when my brother got out, I just stayed. And so my brother got out. I guess he ran to my grandmother's house. And then when my mom got back to the car and realized that my brother wasn't in there, she was basically like, "Where is he? Where is he?" And I was just like, "Oh, he ran to grandma's house." But long story short, we went to my grandmother's house and she was trying to get him to come back. And my grandmother was trying to tell me to come out of the car, but I said no. And in that moment, I knew that I couldn't leave my mom. And I was 5 years old and I was willing to put my own life at risk and unwillingly in order to stay with my mother. And I'm so grateful that I did because it did end up resulting in a traumatic episode. However, I honestly believe that if I was not with my mother at that time, something more serious, more than likely could have happened to her because she would have been by herself as opposed to them finding her with a 5-year-old child in the front seat.
Mhm.
So emotionally, I just felt like I knew intuitively that I would never leave my mom, and I've never left her since.
Yeah. Yeah. For those who are listening and maybe not know that term, or yeah, the term manic episode, I just quickly looked up NAMI's definition, and basically what it is a state of mind characterized by high energy, excitement, and euphoria over a sustained period of time. So if you can imagine just high energy, someone that is just going nonstop, is likely what was going on. And then imagine being in the presence of someone with that type of energy at the age of 5. And this is just to help you put yourself in the space where Sophia was, and at the age of 5, knowing what she said is, I would never leave her. I would never leave her. So emotionally, oftentimes we are giving so much and we don't realize or are not aware how much we are putting out emotionally. So you said you were glad that you didn't leave her, and just intuitively you knew that you would never leave her. So fast forward from age 5 to age 40 plus, you have never left her. How have you managed to keep yourself while choosing to stay with her? Because I can imagine that there were some very, very hard times, and not having to care for anyone else, and not just anyone else, but someone with a severe condition, as you said, like not having that on your plate as someone who is in the professional world, working in accounting, and I know working for a major organization, that in and of itself is difficult. And running a business, like that in and of itself is difficult. So, what is it that maybe you have done to really help yourself take care of yourself?
So to be honest, in the beginning, I didn't really do much to take care of myself. It wasn't until I was introduced to personal development that allowed me to begin to even think that I had the right to be able to take care of myself. And because I tend to be the person who wants to help and be supportive, and I feel like it's a responsibility, I take it on as an obligation. I operate in the manner of that comes first over me. And I've noticed that trend throughout my life where I put others before myself, and I tend to keep myself at the bottom of the list or at the back of the line, or however you want to look at it. Many occasions where I've noticed that throughout my life. And being introduced to personal development in 2017 allowed me to see the importance of that. And even recognizing the importance of it doesn't necessarily mean that I went right away into executing on those things. Because if you've been away for so many times, it may not necessarily be the easiest form to make the switch and jump right into, I'm all about self-care now. So it has definitely been a journey to figure out the best way to do that for myself. From a personality perspective, I am very introverted, even though it may not seem as though I am, I am. And when things feel overwhelming to me, or when I feel like I have a lot going on, my first thing that I do is retreat. I draw back, I pull away, I drop off the face of the earth, is what a lot of people say. And it's not from the sense of it having to do with anybody else. It's the sense of me and just me needing that moment to unplug. I don't want to have to account to anyone. I don't want to have to respond to everyone, let everyone know my every move. I just feel like when I need to unplug and I just don't need to be bothered, then that kind of turns into my self-care per se, because I'm not thinking about the next responsibility, or I'm not thinking about the next person who I need to respond to, or I'm not thinking about another person's need or request that may be coming my way.
Mhm.
So what I've learned to do lately, what I've started to introduce back in 2020, were to take these recurring dates with God. And I call it recurring dates with God because it's my moment to just do nothing but be with the Lord, whether it be me going to a close by coffee shop, whether it be just me going and sitting at the park and watching the sky and looking at the grass, whether it be me just taking a road trip up to a nearby, like, oh, not really an ocean bank, because we don't really have too many oceans where we are, but like near the water where I can see the water and just get a hold of God's creation. Those are the things that help me reset. And again, that was as a result of personal development, introducing those ideas and things of saying like, get in nature and do this and do that. And then instead of me turning it into let me just get out of the house, I wanted to make it intentional. And I said, let me make it a day with my creator. Let me make it a date with my Lord. Let me make it a vacation with the Lord that I served. And so I feel like that has helped me a lot.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's so important to understand self. So important to understand self. You said a few things that I just want to touch on. First, in terms of knowing that you're an introvert. I too am an introvert. And it's so funny because people will think that being an introvert means that you are always closed. And I've come to understand through much study, it's just an introvert just simply means that you refuel when you are by yourself, as opposed to being around other people. And extroverts need other people's energy to refuel, where introverts have to go into a space and be alone to refuel.
Mhm.
So it makes perfect sense when you say I drop off the face of the earth. Like, yeah, I do that, and I tell people I need it for me, like you said, right? It's not about other people. You just understand that I have to go and get still and quiet in order to refuel. And then you talked about your date with God. I absolutely love that. I love that. I think about when things are challenging, and all of the when things are challenging, it's basically our nervous system is dysregulated. So there's all of these tools that individuals can use to regulate their nervous system. And I have this theory that when I think about like slavery and things like that, many of the slaves were able to make it through very horrific times because they were able to get quiet, go into prayer, which is another form of meditation.
Mhm.
They were able to get out, or they worked out like in nature, which is another method for regulating the nervous system. So as I'm hearing you say, I just have my date with God, be that going to a local coffee shop, going to the park, or just going to look at water, or in nature where I can just bask in basically the wonders of his creativity. And my mind was taken back to that. Like, these are things that today's world have put new definitions and new meanings, but it's really, like you're saying, just being in the presence of God. Like, we hear things like meditation, we hear things like nature walk. And I think and believe that all of that is in the presence of God. I think back also to a time when you and I were talking, we just connected on a day, but I remember you being at a park, and you just like had all this joy on your face. So those are a couple of things for people who are, say, caring for their mom, or it could be your dad, but in this case, we're talking about moms, caring for a mom, and you're maybe wondering, like, what can I do to really just feel okay? Because I would imagine there are days where you just don't feel okay and you feel like this is just too much. So what can I do to just feel okay? And she just gave us a couple of things. Knowing yourself first. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? If you are an introvert, giving yourself that space to go and be alone, be quiet, so that you don't have to worry about anyone else. You don't have to answer to anyone else. You don't have to be there for anyone else or want to help, which is what Sophia said. That's kind of her go to. And then also finding out those things that are going to work for you, be it a nature walk, be it going to look at water, or I like to say, like, things like going to do some type of dance or movement, listening to music, finding that thing that is going to work for you, just so that you can reset your nervous system. Um, Another thing that you said, Sophia, is that you have like this natural inclination to want to help. And in that, you tend to put yourself on the back burner. You come last. And I find that very interesting because I'm always thinking trauma responses. And if I just go back to the story you shared with your mom in that manic episode at the age of 5, that being traumatic. And in that moment, you learned, I have to help. And it probably was even earlier than this, but this is the thing that you can point to. But you learned, I have to help. And my helping keeps us safe. My helping keeps us okay. Oftentimes we feel like it's a personality. This is the way I am. And I like to have people think about that just a little differently. when we're operating in our trauma responses, this is the way I learned to be so that I could be safe in life.
Mhm.
And no, we don't think about it from our intellectual brain and articulate it like that. Um, but what we know now from a neuroscience and all of the studies done around that is many times our behaviors come as a result of traumatic experiences that we've had early in life. And unfortunately, we're not able to just shake it off, right? The experience happened, and yes, I was there with mom, and things went much better than they could have gone. And ideally, it would stop there. But what happens is it embeds in our nervous system and it follows us through life. And now here you are at 40, still knowing my go to is to make sure everybody is okay. My go-to is to make sure everybody is okay, even if that comes at the cost of putting self in harm's way, which just duplicates the story you just told, right?
Mhm.
So even while we're continuing to try to care for the person that we love, we still have these trauma responses that show up that get in the way. And I just wanted to speak to that and kind of shed a little bit of light on that because I think it's easy for us to say this is my personality. And I'm always thinking in the question or in the frame of mind of how did God really create us? And we are here to be helpers and to support others. But I'm always thinking, were we really created to sacrifice self
Mhm.
so that others would be okay? And I'm like on a tangent right now. I get that because I'm always like, well, from a traumatic standpoint, what's really happening? So what's coming up for you as I'm saying this, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, what's coming up for me is the truth of it all because I don't think people realize or recognize that when it comes to behavior and the things that we do, it is triggered by an event that more than likely a critical event that has happened to us. And the way that we navigate this world is to try to get through those things. And so it becomes second nature. You had mentioned something and you said, I was probably that way even before I recognized it at 5. I do firmly believe that. And when I think about all of the traumas or the episodes that has gone on throughout my life, definitely it has been from the space of I have to keep not only myself safe, but I have to keep my mom safe. So I have to do what I have to do. And I can see how it stems from trauma, but then I think my question would be how to really help folks make the connection between the trauma event that is leading to their actions today.
Yeah.
And you know that you and I, Coach Catherine, we've had trauma sessions together because of particular incidents that have happened
Mhm.
while going through the process of trying to caregive for my mom at a more recent time as opposed to in prior years. And I really feel like those sessions that we had helped me in so many ways to identify where and when the trauma actually first started and how it is continuing to be triggered by future events. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that piece.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. And it's really I say starts with awareness, like being aware that this behavior continues to show up. Like I do this all the time. Why am I always the one to help? In my own life, mine was taking care of people. I'm the mother for everybody. I don't care how old you are. I'm making sure. Hey, do you have your jacket? Did you notice it was cold outside? Like I'm the mother for everyone. And recently in my life, I went to Denver to do some training. Um, November, and I was asking someone questions, and at some point she was like, I'm 50 something years old. And it stung in the moment, but I am always looking like, where did that come from? What happened? And for me, because I started taking care of my siblings, my at 6, because that's when my brother was born, I have always been that person. Like, you have to make sure the kids are taken care of. And so even though I'm dealing with adults in every situation now, it's, are they taken care of? Do they need anything? Can I help them? But that brought the awareness for me. So the first thing is looking like, where are you showing up with these same behaviors? Where are these same behaviors showing up in your life? And then raise the question, why? And what's most important is not the event. And this is the thing that's most important about trauma. It's not the event, it's how our body responds to the event.
Mhm.
So many times people want to rehash and talk about it. And it's like, that is not really going to bring what I will say sustainable change. We can talk about things, but I am a believer that it gets lodged in our bodies, and talking, and that memory comes from the hippocampus, the part of our brain that's responsible for memory. Well, that's just a memory that's stored. But the feeling that's stored in the body is oftentimes what dictates how we move. So when we are able to release the feeling in the body, then we can have the option to make a choice in how I move, what decision I make. And so awareness is truly what I believe the first thing, which is hard because it's second nature, like you said, right? And if I've been saying my name is Catherine all of my life, it's going to be pretty challenging for you to come and say your name is really Katrina. Right? And Katrina, you need to start saying that your name is Katrina. Like, no, my name has been this. And so someone comes and maybe you want to receive, I might want to receive, my name is Katrina. But if someone asks, what's my name? The first thing that's going to come up is Catherine, because that's what I've been saying. And this is how our behaviors are. We may want to change the behavior, but it's not just I can make the thought and say, okay, I'm going to change. It's like really going through the process. And many times we're afraid to go through that process because we think it's going to be hard. And I'll ask you to speak to that. Like, many people think it's hard to go through the process. And like, there's a little discomfort, but I don't know that it's hard if we really look at the feeling versus sitting in the story. So you've gone through some processes. What would you say is my assumption? I won't even say assumption. That statement, would you say it's accurate?
I would say it's accurate to a degree. However, I do believe that whatever you tell yourself will be hard. So it's all about perspective and being okay with dancing in that uncomfortability around the conversations of it. We know when it comes to people, sometimes they don't want to speak about things that might have happened to them, or they may not want to relive those moments. But the only way that you'll be able to grow through something, the only way that you'll be able to heal through something, the only way that you will actually be able to learn from something is by getting through it. And I firmly believe that just being okay with the possibility of reigniting some things maybe that you may not want to relive, but understanding the fact that once you get to the end of it, that is the end goal. Like, that is the goal, to get to a space of healing, overcoming, and hopefully breaking free from those traumas.
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting because in my experience, the thing that people think it is not.
Mhm.
Like, in my own life, there were so many things that I thought were driving my behavior because I can name a lot of my traumatic experiences from childhood.
Mhm.
So many things that I thought was driving my behavior when I started doing my own work, it wasn't those things. It wasn't those things. And that's why I say, it's not the event, it's how we respond to events.
Mhm.
Dr. Gabor Mate has a definition of trauma that I just butchered, but it's very close to that, where it's not the event, it's how our body responds to the event, which is why we can have two individuals go through a same event, one individual walk away unscathed, like nothing happened, and another individual pretty much put in a catonic state, right?
Mhm.
Like they're stuck there. But it's how our body responds to an event. So when we go through, say, I realize that I have this cycle, and this cycle is no longer working for me, and I want to get over, say, this cycle and the effects that it's having on my life, then it's really looking at what's happening when that cycle shows up, what's happening in the body, what's happening somatically, physiologically, what's happening. And if we had to go back to an event, oftentimes it's not the event we think it is. Like that is just, it still blows my mind, and I still think it is worth mentioning, because so many times that's where we get stuck. And then we go back and we talk about these events, and it's like, oh, but nothing's happening, because that's likely not the event. Right? And there was something else that you said that I wanted to dive into, and it slipped my mind. Maybe it'll come back up. But I want to say, like, we're talking in this moment as we talk about caregiving, and um, just as you are in your adult life, people have very difficult times. I was talking with someone the other day, and they were just sharing about someone they know who's caring for the mom and having a very difficult time, and times are getting very dark for this person. And I'm curious, have you ever experienced a time where it just felt very dark for you? And then, if your answer is yes to that, how did you navigate and find yourself out of that?
Yeah, there's definitely been several dark times and dark moments from what I can recall throughout my life, but I would say the biggest one would be the most recent from 2021. So my mom had been experiencing these mental breakdowns year after year consecutively, from about 2017 up until now, every year around the same time. And in 2021, she had a really bad breakdown again, and she was hospitalized, and then she was released. And then I thought, well, maybe if she stays with me, then I can kind of keep a better eye on her and making sure that I'm monitoring things, and maybe she'll be more so into compliance because, she'll have me, and, we'll be together and I can keep an eye on her. That did not turn out well, just because of her heightened state inside of her manic episode. I mean, there were so many sleepless nights, sleeping on the couch, sometimes sleeping out of fear that, she may do something to me in the middle of the night, because she was having these conversations basically saying that I wasn't her child. So she didn't think it was me. So she saw me, but she was like, it's not the real you. Like, it's not the real Sophie. And so there were some threats and, some things that definitely occurred, and it definitely escalated to a point where my life was almost taken. And from that moment, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But prior to that incident happening, I kept enduring the challenges of the sleepless nights because of the noise and everything that she was making, and the yelling, the hollering, and everything, and trying to get support to come to the home. And she would just not be cooperative with them. And then they started to feel threatened as well. So those services had to cease. And then the incident happened with me. And then that's when she was removed from the home. And she's been hospitalized since. But my darkest moment was that moment when I felt like I was just tired of living. I felt like I was walking in a daze. I didn't want to get up off the couch. I didn't want to take a shower. I didn't want to do my hair. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to do anything. And I told the Lord that I was tired. And it was one moment I was sleeping on the couch, and it was during the day, and because I just never got up. And then I just happened to turn on the couch, like roll over on the other side. And when I faced the window, there was like a beam of sunshine that peeped through a crack of the curtains. Crack of the curtains. It was like it hit me right in the eye. And then as soon as that happened, I felt a gentle, solid, sound voice that said, "Look out the window." And so I sit up, I turn, I open the window, just peek through it, or the curtain rather. I peeked through the curtain, and there was it was a beautiful day. It was sunny, the sky was clear, the birds were chirping, the sun was beaming. And as soon as I looked outside and gazed for about 2 minutes, it was like, go outside. And so I said, okay, let me get up. I hadn't showered. I told you guys I hadn't showered. So I got up. I finally took a shower. I finally put some clothes on. I finally took my rollers out my head. And I remember walking outside with my Bible and my devotional. And I was like, I'm going to go walk up to the nearby park and just sit. And I had my camera, and I mean, not my camera, I had my phone stand. And I just remember walking really slow in the days to the park. And I sat at the park, and I just really had a conversation with God, and something just told me to turn on my camera and just record myself. And so I ended up recording myself having this conversation of my observation and having this conversation of my truth, and where I was telling the Lord, like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired. I'm doing the best that I can. I feel like I have no purpose. I feel like, like, what am I here for? And I was just like, Lord, just take me out. I'm like, Lord, it's either going to have to be her or me. I literally told the Lord that. Either you take her or you take me. You're going to take one of us, because I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I just remember how dark I felt, and felt like I was walking in a daze, and I just I didn't care to live anymore. Let me just say it like that. I didn't care to live anymore. And as I walked back home and got into the house, it felt dark there. And I mean, shortly thereafter, maybe 2.5 months later after that, the incident happened, and my mom was removed from my home. But in those cases, I definitely believe that it was not only a spiritual battle, but it was also a mental battle. And that was the lowest that I ever felt in my life, from April or May 2021 through July, August 2021. That was my state of darkness for all of those months.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're not in that state anymore. Mm. What came up as you were talking is that was the epitome of, I am willing to sacrifice myself to help others. where it got so low that you reached a point of saying, I don't even care if I live anymore. And I'm just wondering, being where you are now, so now it's been almost a year
Since that?
since yeah, since she was removed from the house and you were just kind of coming back into self.
Yeah, so since she was removed from the house about a year and a half, so July would make it 2 years.
Okay.
And in December of 2021 is when she was hospitalized. So she's been hospitalized long term since then. Because even after the July incident, it was kind of in and out, but I kind of had to monitor her from her home instead of mine. So we couldn't stay in the same premises.
Okay. And you have pretty much, and this is my observation, I try and keep in touch. We keep in touch regularly enough to see you as you're walking through. Come back to a place of knowing Sophia for who Sophia had been, and elevating above even that. So from this space, and as you kind of reflect back on what you've been through, what would you say to someone who may be in that state where they're feeling very low, maybe not at a point of not caring to live, maybe they are, but feeling very low? What would you say to that person, having been someone who's been there?
Yeah, I would definitely say to someone who is in that state to not give up. And I know that may be easier said than done, but not giving up includes the process of finding help. So I had to leverage and reach out to my EAP. I had to leverage and reach out to get therapy sessions. I had to reach out and get trauma therapy, trauma coaching. So I had to figure out a way to see where the answer could be to help to get me out. So through prayer, through therapy, through trauma healing, through multiple different avenues. So if you are someone who is feeling low, I just want you to know that it's not the end. There is a way to break free from the darkness. I would also share that the dark cloud is temporary. We don't always have to live under the dark cloud. It may come, but storms only last for but so long. And honestly, it only lasts for as long as we allow them to stay. So just, I know it's hard being optimistic about it in that moment, because trust me, I've been there, but I'm just so grateful for the spirit that nudged me to look out the window, to get up, to get outside. And so I would say, listen to the positive spirit that you're hearing as well. If you are getting a nudge to change your environment, to change your scenery, and you want to make sure that it's the right voice that you're hearing as well. But just move on those things when you hear them.
Yeah. I'm just going to speak a little bit from what I remember, and then I want you to talk about the being on this side of things a little bit, because I know you've had some wins of late. But I remember a conversation we had. I remember a couple of things. One, when I saw we were doing some work together, and I saw not the Sophia, the adult woman that sits before me, usually, but the little girl, every part of your disposition was that little girl. And it was obvious that you were in a very low place. But also, I remember us talking and you telling me a question that your brother asked that you weren't aware of. So, as we're talking about listening to the voices, paying attention to the things that people who love you are saying. And your brother asked about you being in the dark every time he calls you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't realize that you were always in the dark.
No, I didn't. And I forgot about that. So thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah. So my brother, whom I just recently found not too long ago, we we were talking. So he would call me on FaceTime and we would always talk. And during that time, every time he would call and I would answer, I would literally be in the dark. And this might have been after, I can't even remember when, but when I answered, he was just like, why is it when I call you, you're always in the dark? And I was like, wow, because I was in a dark place. I didn't want to see any light. I just didn't want anyone to see me. I was tired. I didn't look like myself. I wasn't my normal energetic self that people were used to and accustomed to seeing. And honestly, sometimes that can be quite draining when people have an expectation of you being and showing up the way that they always see you as. So I just didn't want to be seen.
Yeah.
I was okay with hearing you. I was okay with seeing you, but I didn't want you to see me. So.
And I bring that up because sometimes as people are talking to us, sometimes as people are communicating with us and we're in those places, they are identifying red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone's saying something, if you're listening to this conversation and maybe people that you love are making comments, hear the comments. They may be red flags. Like Sophia is saying, she didn't realize she was always in the dark. She didn't even realize it. But what we know is that darkness can quickly take you into a state of depression.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't realize that she was basically shutting down, and her 5-year-old little girl was trying to navigate life from her adult body. So we said that there has been some shifts. You've come out of that place. And I just want you to share a little bit, as you say, don't give up. When you're in that state, it probably was hard. Like you want to give up. And part of that wanting to give up is that you don't see the other side. You don't see the possibilities that are before you. You're only seeing the hard that you're in the moment. So I want you to just maybe talk a little bit about what's happened since, and probably I won't even say maybe a few months after December of 21, because I know that there had to be some decompressing that was necessary before you showed back up into this fullness and brightness of who you are today.
Yeah. So a lot happened during that time, and honestly, it was a spiritual journey for me. Right after the incident happened with my mother and her being removed from the home, I was reminded of a coaching program that I had signed up for earlier on in the year, and that coaching program was set to resume in August. And so I did some follow-up to make sure that it was still going to go on. And they said, yes, that it was. And so I was enrolled in this program, right? Program starts in August. It focuses on 6 different aspects. But I knew that the main reason why I wanted to continue with my focus in that program was for my faith and for my clarity, because I wanted the Lord to not only give me clarity on my purpose on in life and for life, because remember I said when I had that dark moment, I told the Lord, I don't even know why I'm here. I was like, just take me out. And I wanted clarity on why I was here, and I wanted to increase my faith because my faith was so low. So within the first week or two of starting that program, there was a faith call that was held. And during the call, the coach had mentioned something along the lines of something the coach said just kind of triggered me to like really kind of get myself together in terms of understanding the word for myself and like really studying the word for myself so that I can build a better relationship with God. So I go through this process of utilizing this framework that was shared on how to study the word, and I went immensely and intensely into executing this study practice. And when I tell you, Coach Catherine, that the Lord spoke to me in so many different ways, it was not only remarkable, but it was almost scary to hear, to see, to witness the very things that I had either been praying to the Lord privately about, that I had been writing in my journal to the Lord privately about, for those things to either be said to me verbatim from someone in the flesh who I never knew, never met. Also to have various types of opportunities just show up out of nowhere suddenly, to be able to regain my mental focus. And I think now I'm in the space where I truly appreciate the sanity that my mind can now have, because of my reasoning to keep my faith as strong as I can. So what has happened since then is I have a complete transformation on how I view life and how I view challenges and how I view maybe even the things that I've encountered, because even despite all of those challenges and difficulties, it has made me into the woman who I am today. And it has allowed me to share my story with others who may be going through the same thing, and understanding the fact that what I go through in life is not intended for it to be a pity party. It's intended for it to be evidence to someone else who may be going through the same thing that a positive outcome is possible, and a positive outcome actually happened.
Yeah, and that's why we're here.
And that's why we are here.
Just the evidence. So we are coming up on our time, and I just want to quickly recap just a few of the things that you shared in terms of resources that you relied upon to actually navigate through this walk. And based on the emphasis that you placed on it, I'm going to say the first and foremost was getting closer, as well as sitting in the presence of God, building your faith. So if you're going through this and you're wondering, how do I make it through this when I feel like it's consuming me? One of the things that Sophia has said consistently is being in the presence of God, being in the presence of God. Be that her dates with God, being in nature and just basking in his creation, or going through her Bible, diving in at a very deep level, one that she's not done before. So being in the presence of God. Next, I will say understanding, knowing who you are. How do you refuel? How do you fill yourself back up? Do you need people around you, or do you need to be by yourself? Are you an extrovert or are you an introvert? So understanding and knowing who you are. If it's that you need people around you because you're an extrovert, then you want to figure out who those friends are that you can really rely on, that you can lean on, that you can really trust, and reach out and ask them to share some time, share some space. Even if it's for them to come to you, have a cup of coffee, share a story. If they can't come, figure out, can you get on Zoom? So looking at all angles so that you can be with someone else. And if you are an introvert and you don't want to be with anyone else, honor yourself by doing just that, getting by yourself and staying by yourself, and asking those who want to intrude, maybe out of concern, or maybe out of their own ignorance, just speaking up and expressing that you need that time, so that you can refuel. But then also reaching out and asking for help. Sophia also says she contacted her EAP. She sought therapy. She sought coaching, and specifically trauma coaching, which of course I am an advocate of. But just knowing. So some things I wrote down as you were talking is sit with your higher power.
Mhm.
We call them God. Other people may call it something else. But be in the presence of something bigger than you, a force that's greater than you.
Mhm.
Get with that higher power. Get with man or woman. That's your EAP, your therapist, your coach. And I just believe when we are going through things and talking has not helped, um, look to someone that is versed and understands trauma. And then also understanding yourself. Understanding yourself. It's not a cakewalk, and it may be hard at times, but she has advised or cautioned that you not give up, not give up, because there truly is another side. There truly is brightness on the other side of dark. So, as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything else that's coming up, or maybe you want to add, insert,
No,
piggyback?
I think you said it perfectly by concluding with that statement about on the other side of darkness, there's always brightness.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And so if we can continue to journey through so that we can get to the light and that we can get to the brightness, that's going to be all the satisfaction that you need. So I think that's perfectly well said.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to say thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I love you. You know that.
You too. Thank you for everything.
How do people connect with you? Tell us how. Be it Debt Demolisher, or even if someone just says, hey, what you said really resonated with me.
Yes.
How can they connect with you?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is by going to my website, Sophia Melanie, SophiaMelone.com, and that will take you to either where you can send me an email directly, or you could reach my YouTube channel, The Debt Demolisher TV, as well as all of the other social media platforms that I'm on.
And what are those other platforms and what's your handles?
Yeah, sure. So TikTok and Instagram is Debt Demolisher TV. Those are the handles for that. Facebook, I'm not really on much, but it's I am Sophia Melanie, and Twitter as well. I am Sophia Melanie for the Debt Demolisher TV.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate you so much. And this topic, again, I think is one that needs to be discussed, and people who are caring for their moms or dad or grandmother or just whomever, if you have become a caretaker, just to know that you're not alone. You're not alone, and there are people out here who has walked the walk that you've walked and has managed to make it to the other side. And what I love about the scripture is it gives us promises. And one of my favorite scriptures is God is no respecter of person. And I just always like to say, if he's done it for one, that means that he will do it for you as well. So as I began to wrap up each week, I close out with a short, simple prayer. And my prayer for you this week is nothing more than believing that if he's done it for one, he will do it for you, that you will not give up, that you will hold on to the words that Sophia has shared, and just know that there is truly brightness on the other side of darkness. As we close out, I just want to remind you that in this life, we get to choose to live a sensational life. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for listening to Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine, where Catherine aims to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Follow Catherine on Facebook and Instagram at I am Catherine James, and visit www.catherinejames.com. Remember, to live the life of your dreams, you must go within and return to the place where your heart speaks.